Shot, yeah. This is our new studio. We're letting our internet viewers see a little bit behind the scenes here before we get going. Beautiful day in Washington, D.C. Here we go. Here we go.
Focused on the Holocaust Memorial, and then I'll pan back to you.
1 minute. And good afternoon, everyone in South Florida on 1470 AM WNN. Going to be a little different type of show today. Usually we are pretty aggressive at what we do. I guess we'll still have the aggressive nature, but what we're doing now is we're on the road, as you guys know. And we're in a very important place right now. We are broadcasting live from Washington, D.C. And if you've been to Washington, D.C., and you tried to videotape or broadcast anything, you get pushed off of the corners pretty quickly. They don't want any videotaping in front of federal buildings or anything like that. So we are set up in a unique place right now for you to bring you this live coverage. And did you show me? Can you show them that shot over there one more time? Can you get that shot over there? And I want to tell them a little bit about where we are. Our team, we flew out of New York earlier this morning, got to D.C. and got to this location right here. And if you look very, very carefully, we're basically across the street from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. And if you folks have not been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. yet, you need to come here. Our team, the United West, Tom Trento, Mark Campbell, Alan Kornman, and about 7 others this past February, we went, as many of you know, and you'll be seeing the video from our trip. We went on an intelligence briefing, national security briefing to Israel, and we're the guests of the IDF, the National Police, the Border Police, and we studied in February when we were in Israel. We studied suicide bombers, why they do what they do, the Palestinian suicide bombers, how they do what they do. And we looked at the Israeli national security apparatus to suppress suicide bombing. That was our trip in February. And as you know, our organization, the United West, is dedicated to defending the United States Constitution, particularly these days, the number 1 amendment. It's coming under a lot of fire even today in New York. We're going to tell you about that. But a couple of the other objectives of our mission statement with the United West is to defend the state of Israel from a national security perspective. We think Israel is America's not an ally, but the number 1 ally worldwide in many respects, because the crisis right now is in the Middle East, and that country seems to be placed in the Middle East if you haven't been looking. So we feel it's critically important to tell you what's going on in Israel and tell you to keep exposing the failing relationship of this administration in relationship to the Israeli government, notwithstanding the wonderful rhetoric of our president. So today we're going to do a couple of items on the show, one of which is a recognition of our Jewish brothers and sisters. And many of you know that I'm a Christian. I consider myself a Zionist Christian. And we're here in front of the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., symbolically on this very, very critically important day for Jewish people worldwide. And you may or may not know that Florida, the population of Florida is about 19 million people. Population of California is about 35 million people. Texas, 25 million. New York, 18 million. I don't know if you know, worldwide, there's only about 15 million Jewish people worldwide. 15 million. There's 1.3 billion, with a B, Muslims worldwide. In the United States, there's about 6 to 7 million Jewish people. There's only 2 million Muslims. We know factually, and we'll show you a video, undercover video, down the road of Muslim leaders telling us that they cooked the books purposely in 2000 to try to be equal with the number of Jewish people in America by saying there were 6 and 7 million Muslims. There's not. There's only 2.3 million. But on this day, this critically important day for Jewish people, we wanted to come to Washington, set up in front of the Holocaust Museum as a remembrance, and tomorrow is another very important day in America. Never Forget Day. It's a day where many people are going to be assembling at the campaign headquarters of the president, trying to remind this president that never again will there be a Holocaust. Now, why is this so important? It's very important because we have individuals meeting on 38th and 1st Avenue in Manhattan, where we were yesterday, at that rectangular building called the United Nations, in this General Assembly meeting. And as you know, as we explained yesterday, there's 193 member states to the United Nations. The United States pays about 22-25% of the budget, and virtually all of those countries, other than the Western countries, are against the United States. So that's a whole interesting development taking place at the United Nations at this critically important time in American history. But today we want to just reflect a little bit upon the important day that Jewish people are experiencing, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur. I want to just tell you a little bit about that, and then we're going to get into the threats that this country, Israel, is facing, and the necessity of good Americans everywhere. Good Americans here in Washington, D.C., good Americans in every state in the Union, good Americans living in Israel, good Americans living overseas. For there to be a consolidation and unification of Americans to stand with Israel in these very difficult days, because she is, in many respects, standing alone. When the president of the most powerful country in the world, the United States, makes a decision, thinks through all the ramifications and the implications, and makes a decision to spend time with Whoopi Goldberg on a television show and turn down a request by the leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, to meet to discuss critical issues of Egypt, of Iran, of Syria, of Lebanon, of Jordan, of the Gaza Strip, of the West Bank. There's something wrong, folks, and we're drawing attention to that. This is Tom Trento. If you're online, you're watching us at trentovision.tv or at our other website, theunitedwest.org. If you're listening in South Florida from Miami to Fort Pierce, you're on WNN 1470 on the AM dial, big 50,000 watt station. We cover about 5 million people, and yes, every single one is listening today, except the Jewish folks. There's about 500,600,000 or so in our listening range, and they are in their synagogues today reflecting on this critically important day, Yom Kippur. Well, what is Yom Kippur? And many Christians and non-Jewish people know it's an important day, but they don't really understand the significance of the day. Well, one of the reasons why myself and our team want to bring attention to this day is because of individuals floating around in the United States that are perceived as moderate Muslims. And we're going to show you a little 30-second clip here when we're ready. If you've been following our broadcasts, last Saturday we arrived in New York, and on Sunday we covered the 27th annual Muslim parade in Manhattan. And we showed you the Muslims shutting down Madison Avenue for their prayer. They had a permit, they had the right to do that. This is America. I'd like to see me and my Jewish and Christian friends go to any Islamic country, there's 56 of them, or go into Gaza and say, we're going to shut down one of your streets and pray to Jesus Christ or Moses or Buddha or whatever. Ain't going to fly. That's the beauty and the wonder of the United States of America, primarily because of that beautiful First Amendment. When the framers constructed the principles upon which this country was founded, developed, and launched, they saw the necessity to amend the Constitution, make it better, and the first way they amended the Constitution was to say, in a free country, you got to be able to speak. You got to be able to say stuff that maybe other people don't like. And through our 236 years of history, our Supreme Court, and maybe we'll bring you a show from the Supreme Court over the next couple of days. The Supreme Court argued many times the issue of free speech, and we've come down four square that Americans have the right to be offensive, to say stuff that other people don't like. This is the way we construct a civilized society. We don't fight and kill each other over words. We ought not to. And in the United States, in a civilized manner in which we live, the First Amendment has held a magnificent position, but it's under attack. It was under attack 2 times today in New York. And it was under attack last Sunday at the 27th annual Muslim parade in Manhattan. We showed you Muslims praying. We showed you a couple of video clips the other day of the various floats bringing Muslim and Islamic honor to Saudi Arabia, and then recognizing, as a float went down Madison Avenue, the Islamic view of Jerusalem as the capital of the Islamic State of Israel. And then we showed you some speakers at the end, and one of the videos we put together that now has gone viral all over the internet was where a Democratic state senator, Tony Avella, he was sitting on stage. He was asked he wanted to be a marshal. He was a marshal in the 27th annual Muslim Day parade. And as moderate Muslim dignitary after moderate Muslim dignitary took to the microphone, took to the podium on 38th Avenue between 26th and 36th Street, they just spewed vitriol. Now, in the defense of the speakers, they would have the platitudinal nod to, we don't want violence, we never want violence. But when you speak about dishonoring the Prophet, when you speak about the offenses of Americans, when you speak about all of this to the jihadi mind, those individuals who truly believe that Islam is in a war against the West, those dignitaries, those moderate Muslim dignitaries were absolutely fueling the aggressive nature that you're seeing in the Middle East and that we hope never comes to the United States. Well, we want to show you this 30-second clip to launch our show today on Yom Kippur. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means to Jewish people, what it means to people worldwide. And we're going to tell you a little bit about the Yom Kippur War that was launched some years back. And we're drawing attention to this issue because right now, if you were to travel to Israel, the country is shut down. Shut down for two reasons. Number one, this is the high holy day, Yom Kippur, and everything basically stops. All non-essential activity stops, all travel, all transportation, all of that. And not only has the nation of 6 or 7 million Jewish people come to a halt for reasons we're going to tell you about in a minute, but they're also on high alert. They also have a national security apparatus in place for fear, possible fear, of jihadi attacks, whether through individuals or Hamas cells or Hezbollah cells or state action from belligerent states. Israel is on high alert for national security, and it is really a contradiction in Western common sense, where you have a group of people trying to live in their land and to worship God on a critically important day where they have to have their guns loaded and their soldiers at the ready. That's the contradiction going on in Israel. But why? Take a look at this individual. This is an imam from Brooklyn, New York, from Coney Island. And we're going to show you bits and pieces through this week, and then we're going to show you a detailed analysis of his speech the other day. Take a look at his rallying call. He spoke for about 15 minutes to about 1,000 Muslims at the 27th Annual Muslim Parade in Manhattan the other day. And take a look at his closing comments, but also look at his mannerisms. We looked at it and we saw the mannerisms of a speaker. And I do a lot of public speaking, and I understand hand movements, body movements, intonation of speech, all of this. Take a look at this imam who was brought up by moderate Muslims in New York to close his rallying, where he called for the United Nations to write blasphemy laws against Tom Trento and all the rest of us that criticize Islam. We criticize Islam as a political system. And watch right now as this imam closes his speech the other day. Tell me who you think he looks like. Roll it, please, Mark.
Everybody raise your hand. Takbir! 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 Risalat! 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 Islam! 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 Jazakallah khair. Message was loud and clear.
Delay. We're on a delay. Okay. If that didn't look like Adolf Hitler with his Heil Hitler Nazi salute, I don't know what does, if that didn't. And the anger and the vitriol in that imam's speech that day frightens people of peace, frightens civilized people in civilized countries, because you have to peel away the layers, folks, of what's behind the mannerisms and words. What is the ideology? What is the Muslim Brotherhood civilization plan for the United States of America? And that's why we're here in front of this building, the Holocaust Museum, because, sidestep it as you may, there are very angry people that believe the Jewish race needs to be obliterated and eliminated. One of those people spoke at the UN a little earlier today. So on this Yom Kippur day, I want to just share a little insight into the religious significance of Yom Kippur so that our viewers and our listeners understand it. And this is Tom Trento coming live at about 20 minutes after the hour. On the East Coast, it's 20 minutes after 2. And we're broadcasting on TrentoVision.tv on the internet, simulcasting with our radio station back in Boca Raton, Florida, WNN 1470. If you want a great, nice, clear radio reception, you can go to iHeartRadio and go to WNN, search for WNN on iHeartRadio. You get a beautiful digital audio presentation. And here's what it's all about today. Yom in Hebrew means day, and Kippur means to atone. So Yom Kippur for the Jewish world means the day in which they atone for their sins before God. Jumping back about a week to Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. Last week, Jews worldwide celebrated their New Year. They date their New Year from the time of Adam and Eve, and the Jewish New Year right now is 5,773. That's the year in which Jews, how they date the calendar. If you're in Israel, it's 5,773. Christians date their calendar, the Julian calendar, from the death of Jesus Christ. They're the Christian Messiah. Muslims date their calendar not from the beginning of Islam in Mecca, but actually about 10 years later, when they did the Hijrah, the movement from Mecca to Medina, the beginning of the Islamic calendar starts in Medina. So we have the three large religions in the world, each dating their calendars differently. But a week ago was Rosh Hashanah, and now today is Yom Kippur. From Jewish theology, this past week, Jews believe that God has written in the Book of Life the names of Jewish people, and this past week is a time of introspection, of repentance, of evaluating how you live. And in Jewish theology, today is the sealing of God, of their name being in the Book of Life written by God. And it's such a significant, sacred day that it's necessary for Jews, particularly Orthodox Jews. This is an Orthodox belief. It's necessary to fast for 25 hours, one whole day. The reason it's 25 hours, the sages and the rabbis through the years wanted to make sure that 24 hours was done properly, so they extended it a half hour on each side, 25 hours, so that each believing Jew could properly come prostrate before God. And Jewish people right now are in synagogues all over the world, and there's ceremony and prayer and real repentance, thinking through their life, their wrongdoing, and truly trying to make those corrections. It's a very serious time of uniting yourself more closely with God. That's what's going on right now worldwide. That's what's going on in Israel right now. That's Yom Kippur, a very special day. I got an idea. Let's attack Israel today. At their most highest holy day, let's try to kill them and destroy them. How crazy is that idea? Well, in 1973, that's exactly what happened. If you remember the Six-Day War in 1967, let's go back to 1948, the day May 15th, 1948, the day the charter was recognized by the United Nations of the establishment of a true homeland for Jewish people. 1948 was just a few years after the end of the war. As we know, during the war, there was a guy raising his hand like what you just saw, but he did a little more than just raise his hand. He brought people, Jewish people, and put them in ovens and killed them, 6 million of them. And that building that's right across from where we are right now is America's testament to the fact that this ought never happen again and will never happen again, as long as true Americans are as strong as the building blocks, the granite in that building over there. That's why we're here today. But in 1973, a group of people decided to take advantage of the high holy day of Jewish people while they're solemnly reflecting upon their personal relationship with God, and they attacked. Now, I want to go through the war, the Yom Kippur War of 1973. I want to share with the audience, our listening audience, WNN 1470, and Trento Vision TV, our audience over there. Well, let me tell you, I mean, we've carved out a little section right here where we're kind of hidden and no one's thrown us out. If we get thrown out of here, we may have to drop the video side. We'll continue on the radio side. So if that happens, because the federales don't like videotaping in front of places, but I think we're okay here. But I want to share for our viewing audience and listening audience a little bit of the metrics, a little bit of the facts of the Yom Kippur War of 1973. To show you two things. To show you the Arab hatred. Maybe it's changed since 1973, you know. Maybe it hasn't. We're going to talk about the UN and President Morsai's words today, and we'll see if the times have changed. But in 1973, a war was launched against the Jews. And if you look right now, is that on the screen right now? The viewers can actually see what I'm going to be reading for the listening audience. And this is just simple factual material. This is taken off of the internet, and we put it up for the viewers so you can see the belligerence. You can see the team the pickup team that gathered against Israel in 1973. Let's start with Egypt. Egypt in 1973 got together a few of their friends. They got together Syria, they got together Iraq, they got together Jordan. They got the Soviet Union to resupply and supply the belligerent force, the Arab force against the Jews. This is on Yom Kippur. But I got to tell you a fascinating little bit of history. Because Jews and Muslims make their calendar from, it's a lunar calendar. What are you pointing to? Rashad? A lunar calendar. These days, Yom Kippur switches, obviously, because of the movement of the moon. And in 1973, Yom Kippur fell during Ramadan. And we all know that Ramadan is the month of celebration. Maybe we all don't know. Ramadan is the month of celebration that Muslims adhere to in thankfulness for the Quran being given to Muhammad through the angel of Gabriel. Muslims take a whole month where they fast all during from sunup to sunrise, and that's their time of reflection and religious reconciliation with mankind and with one another. But in 1973, the Arab world decided to take their holy day and attack Jews on their holy day. What does that say about the Arab mindset and the animus and hatred toward the Jewish world, to take the high holy time of Islam and to use it as an attack date to kill Jews, wipe them out, and regain Israel, the land of Israel and Jerusalem? Look at the pickup team that came together in 1973. Somebody do the math. How many years ago was that? 49 years? 39 years? 39 years ago. Yeah. We're pretty good at math here at Trento Vision. 39 years ago, Egypt got together with Syria, Iraq, Jordan, the Soviet Union, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Algeria, Cuba. Cuba sent 4,000 people to fight with Arabs against Jews in 1973. Did you know that Cuba fought with the Arabs against the Jews in 1973? For my Cuban friends, that's not a whole lot of fun. Cuba joining the Arab League. Let me have that graphic back there. In addition to Cuba, where'd it go? I need the Cuba one. We're getting the Cuba one back up. Here it is. The PLO joined with North Korea. What a wonderful group of belligerents, from Egypt to Syria to Iraq to Jordan, the Soviet Union, Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Algeria, Cuban, the PLO, and North Korea, all gathered to fight one country, Israel. Guess who stood by Israel in 1973? Guess what one country stood by Israel in 1973? Take a wild guess. Well, how about the country that built that museum right across the street in recognition that this will never happen again? Yes, by the wonder of what we are as Americans. And folks, in about 40 days, you're going to have to vote on November 6th. And America is only as strong as the individuals that get up on November 6th, that get out and voice their opinion. And we are arguing vociferously, we being the United West, Trento Vision, our team, and many others who are pro-Israel Zionists. We are arguing that when you think through the ramifications of your vote on November 6th, you seriously consider the necessity of national security. We understand the importance of the economy, but if the Arab world has their way and destroys Israel, you want to see what's going to happen to the economy? You want to try to figure out how much gas is going to cost? You want to try to figure out how difficult it is going to be for a Westerner to move anywhere in this world if indeed Israel is wiped off the face of the earth or seriously defeated? In 1973, the United States understood the importance of standing with Israel. We stood with Israel and we beat the belligerents. Now, let me add a little bit of color to the one-sided nature of this war. Hey guys, are we in New York again, or you know, what's going on with these sirens? I thought that was only New York. We're in Washington, D.C., and you will see caravans coming by with dignitaries even here, and the sirens blaring. But not only were there about 15 countries aligned against Israel, let's look at the firepower of these countries. And what are we doing here today on Trento Vision? We're bringing out the importance of Yom Kippur as a religious high holy day for Jewish people, but we're also showing the complete contradiction and clash of worldviews when enemies strike a country on its high holy day. Now look at the firepower these countries had. Egypt had about 700,000 troops. Israel had between 400,000 and 500,000 troops. Israel alone had 700,000 troops. Egypt had 700,000 troops. They had 1,700 tanks, 1,200 artillery units, 140 helicopters, naval vessels. Syria had 150,000 troops. As you go through the information on the size of the team against Israel, it was a 3-to-1 majority. There were 3 fighters against every Israeli fighter in the Yom Kippur War of 1973. When you look at armament, there was a 2-to-1 advantage by the Arab consolidated nations against Israel. How in the world can a tiny country who are in the synagogues, who get attacked on this high holy day, how could they fight a differential of 3 fighters to every one, 2 pieces of armament to every one, except the Israelis had more combat aircraft? When you see in the United States Congress, those who support Israel say, we've got to give them the F-16s, the F-22s, we've got to give them air superiority. You know why. They were attacked in 1948 when the country was established. They were attacked in the 1967 in the Six-Day War. And then they were attacked in all by Arabs now. Then they were attacked in 1973, where the Arabs thought for sure they would be victorious. Why? Because in 67, when they were routed by the Israelis, when the Arab consolidated nations were routed and defeated by the Israelis, there was a sense of shame that went through the Islamic world. You have to understand, folks, part of the reason we have to defend the First Amendment is simply because the Arab mind is offended when we criticize Islam or the Prophet, if there's a cartoon or a video, whatever. And shame cuts deeply to the bone of the Arab world. Well, maybe that's a civilization that is incompatible with Western democracy. Maybe in order for an individual to make the transition from the Arab Islamic world to Western society, they've got to make philosophical changes in their mind to see that speech, as difficult as it may be, is the hallmark of what the West is all about. But in 1973, the Jews had to fight a 3-to-1 majority, fighter to fighter, 3 fighters to 1, and twice as much armament to the Israelis back then. So we're getting a security guard asking what we're doing right now, live here. We're making a little video. That's all. Just tell them we're making a little video. So we're maybe getting disrupted here. So for the listening audience, we are right now having a conversation with a security guard who may be asking us to leave. We thought this may happen. For the video audience, I'm going to keep going as if nothing is happening. Now, 2 guys are talking to the security guard, but this is Trento Vision. We're running and gunning, folks. We're shooting, and it looks like our diplomatic corps of Alan Corman and Mark Campbell resolved the difficulty. Are we okay?
Yeah, so we'll be over in a little bit. So.
Okay. We're going to be done shortly here. But look, we love WNN Studios. They're air conditioned. Joe's a great guy to work with. Bob, everybody's there is wonderful. But we gotta bring you out there to the nitty gritty every once in a while. And this is a critically important week in terms of our objective, which is educating voters in the United States, in Florida, to bring you the activity from New York at the General Assembly at the United Nations and from here in front of the Holocaust Museum. So our purpose today is to alert Americans to the important day that Jews are reflecting and trying to move more closely to God. But from a national security perspective, I'm a theologian, but this isn't a theology lesson. This is a show on national security. Historically, the Arab world has attacked Jews at significant times. This day, 39 years ago, they were attacked. That war went on for almost a month until the United Nations called for a truce and a ceasefire. Well, since that war in 1973, there has been a peace deal brokered with Egypt, but Israel's still at a state of war with other nations. And if history repeats itself, we fear there may be a war in the near future where Israel has to take preemptive action to stop Iran from developing a weapon that supersedes the 3-to-1 advantage the Israelis had and the Arab world had over the Israelis, and the 2-to-1 advantage of military hardware with unique bombs that can devastate a little tiny country. So all of what we're doing today, all of what we're doing this week on WNN 1470 on TrentoVision.tv is alerting American voters, Florida voters, to the importance of standing with Israel from a national security perspective. Now, that's a little bit about Yom Kippur in terms of the day of reflection and atonement for Jewish people. A little bit about the history of this day as a target day from the Arab world against the Jews. Now let's go to today and the activities that took place in New York City. Well, what took place? We had 2 speakers. We had 2, Laurel and Hardy or Abbott and Costello. Both of these guys spoke. Both of these guys should not have been allowed into this country from our perspective. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, should have been told when he came into whatever airport he flew in, sorry, you got to go back. You're not welcome in this country. You have killed American troops by supplying Hezbollah and various terrorist cells throughout the world, in Afghanistan and in Iraq. We know that. Everybody knows that. So you're not allowed in the United States because you fought against us, and we don't let you in. That's what should have happened. For Morsi, we couldn't care less that he's the president of Egypt. If you do your homework and look at the organization he belongs to, called the Muslim Brotherhood, they have written plans to overthrow the United States of America, primarily through a civilization jihad. But if they need to become kinetic, they will become kinetic and use force to do that. If you look at the statements, the positions, the viewpoint of President Mohammed Morsi, you'd say, this guy's not an ally of the United States of America. And as much as the president has been buddying up to him, He even said the other day, well, we're not quite sure he's an ally or all of that, and the whole State Department administration was in, where it was flummoxed, trying to figure out who Mohammed Morsi is. We know he's an enemy of the United States of America, and until he does certain things, he ought not be allowed in this country. That's simple. So, what did these two guys do today? Well, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had some rambling kind of sermonic presentation about how great he has been for his country, that they were number 17 in the global scale of economies. Number 22, he moved it to number 17. He went on to say that the most salient points he made that are of importance to our astute audience on the radio side and the video side, the most astute points that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad made was that there needs to be a new world order. Now, all of our conspiratorial friends are going to say, oh, see, with the Bilderbergs and the Rothschilds and all of that, he called for a new world order. Well, if you understand Islamic threat doctrine, if you understand Shia theology, the 12er theology where the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, is coming back, and Mahmoud Ahmadinejad believes he's the precursor to that, and the Ayatollahs. Well, let me tell you this, folks. Many people are saying that Ahmadinejad does not have power anymore in Iran as a president. That's wrong. The Ayatollahs, the 12 ruling Ayatollahs with Khomeini as the main supreme Ayatollah, they want Mahmoud Ahmadinejad exactly where he is. They want him there because he's doing the job that they want him doing. If he wasn't, he would disappear off the face of the earth. So he is there by design. He called for a new world order. Guess who rules that new world order? Well, the imamate, the Shia caliphate is what he's calling for. He's calling for a consolidation of the Islamic countries to stand against the bully. He even used the terms, America is a bully. He even said, he being Ahmadinejad, even said today at the United Nations that even school children worldwide understand that America is a bullying nation, a colonial nation, colonizing other countries. And it's time for a new world order to push America out of the way. Well, guess what? Why do the Shia community, why do the imams and the Ayatollahs want America pushed out of the way? Oh, let's go back to this day and that building. Today is the day in which Jews, Yom Kippur, atone for their sins and reunite with Hashem in a unique way. And today is also a day that we're broadcasting across the street from that museum to bring the importance home of the unification necessary for Americans to stand with Israel. To push America out of the way and to create a new world order means they got a clear shot at Israel. Most likely they would have defeated Israel 39 years ago on Yom Kippur, if not resupplied by the United States of America. And a word to this administration right now, if indeed war breaks out between Israel and Iran, Israel once again will need the United States assistance. And we guarantee, if war breaks out between Israel and Iran, we guarantee there will be a consolidation of the Arab nations once again, in that they see this manifest destiny that Allah has given them this moment to finally defeat the Jews. How do we know that's the goal? Listen to the President of Egypt, Mohammed Morsi, in what he said today at the United Nations. You guys want to tell everybody what he said today? What did he say today?
Yeah, he wants Jerusalem to be...
Oh, this mic, that's right.
The new capital of the new state of Palestine. That's great.
We all were monitoring Mohammed Morsi's speech. We were monitoring Mohammed Morsi's speech at the United Nations. And he did several things that are critically important to Florida voters, to American voters. He called for an international law against Tom Trento, Alan Corman, Mark Campbell, Claire Lopez, Frank Gaffney, Team B2, any counter-jihad, patriotic American, Tea Party people, all of that, He called for a law suppressing our First Amendment right to criticize Islam or criticize the Prophet. This doesn't even compute in our heads how a world leader had the audacity, the balls, if you will, to stand in New York City and say, change your friggin' First Amendment. This guy should have got the hook, pulled off stage, shipped on some freighter back to Egypt. The nerve of this guy, but you know what? We're a free country and he can do that. And we're glad he did that because something has to wake up voters in Florida. There's 1 million Christians who ought to be standing with Israel who don't take the time to register or to vote. That's sinful. You want to talk about something sinful today? Folks, the president of Egypt has called for the United Nations to write an international law to stop us from having, right now, guys, if the president of Egypt magically gets his way today, we're scooped up. We're thrown in some paddy wagon and we're brought to some gulag, and it ain't going to be nice.
And we saw it directly down at the street level in New York, where they emulated the exact same speech that Morsi said at the UN.
Great. Mark just had a great point. The synchronicity between the president of Egypt's call for an international law against blasphemy, against slander, against dishonoring Islam and the Prophet, were the exact same words and phrases used by the moderate Muslims who put on the New York Muslim parade. And we showed you some of that video. What's going on here, folks? Well, they're sensing a weak, defeated president. Islam, Muslim countries, the Arab nations know that this president is in campaign mode. When he goes to visit Whoopi Goldberg and Barbara Walters and the other ladies on The View, so that he can appear before 4 million women and increase his chances of getting reelected, the enemies of the United States, the enemies of Israel know that's a weak guy, and they're pounding him right now. When they know that the president chose to go on The View instead of meeting with the leader tomorrow, Benjamin Netanyahu is flying into New York tomorrow to address the General Assembly. When the Arab world looks and sees this president saying, no, I'm not meeting with Netanyahu, they go, thank you, Allah, Allahu Akbar, inshallah, this is wonderful. Not only, you had a thought?
Yeah, and if a Democratic senator from a liberal state of New York who supported, who walked with the Muslim Brotherhood, could be outraged at this, you can be outraged at this.
Yeah, excellent point, Mark. If Tony Avella, a Democrat senator who was a marshal in the parade, was infuriated and offended to the point where he didn't want to speak about it by the call for the suppression of we're talking free speech, folks. And voting is one of those free speech rights, to go exercise your right to speak at the ballot box. You need to do it. President Morsi today had 3 important points for all Americans to understand, and we're bringing it to you live from Washington, D.C., across from the Holocaust Museum on Yom Kippur. It doesn't get any better than that for gathering news with our crew, Trento Vision at WNN 1470. So Morsi said, no speak for you guys, number 1. He also said, the most important issue in the world. This is unbelievable. He's got a rotten country, Egypt, where half the people live on $2 a week. And he's out there calling for the most important issue in the world being the Palestinian issue in Israel. Give me a friggin' break. I mean, do you people truly see what's going on? This is the biggest public relations Islamic scam on the face of the earth. When the head of Egypt, a rotten country, a country by any true polling, Pew did a poll the other day saying a couple of months ago that 90% of Egyptians want Sharia law in some capacity. 50% support Al-Qaeda. 50% of the 80 million residents, 80 million citizens of Egypt support Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah. This is astonishing. And yet for the president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, hey, let's take a wild guess where Mohamed Morsi went to school. Maybe he doesn't understand the West. Maybe he doesn't understand what a First Amendment is. Guess where Mohamed Morsi earned his PhD, actually his undergraduate degree in engineering. Wild guess? How about the University of Southern California, USC in Southern California? From 1978 to 1982, the guy who spoke at the UN today, Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi, was a student at USC getting his degree in mechanical engineering. While there, he joined a little group of Boy Scouts known as the Muslim Brotherhood. He knows the First Amendment as clear as could be, and he wants to suppress it because the First Amendment is devastating, absolutely devastating to Islam. That's why there is no First Amendment in Islamic countries. You are not allowed to speak freely. Is that what you people want here in the United States? Get up on November 6th, get to the polls. Christians and veterans, you veterans, need to get out and vote. More sirens. Okay, so Morsi calls for an international law against blasphemy in New York, just a couple hundred miles north of where we're at. Morsi also identifies the Palestinian issue. There's the Jews again, Alan. The Jews were across from the Holocaust Museum. He says the Palestinian issue, that's really the issue that will bring about world peace. And you know how? What did he say about the capital?
Jerusalem.
He said the capital of Israel, now known as Jerusalem, needs to be the capital of the Islamic world. In Israel, needs to be the capital of the Arab community in Israel. Gaza and the West Bank, they need to be united as a separate state. And we all know, maybe we don't all know, because we have new listeners and viewers on TrentoVision.tv and WNN 1470. But you should know that before the United Nations right now is a document calling for the PA has called for months ago, back in September, for the UN to recognize Palestine or Gaza as a separate and independent state. That's on the floor being considered right now. So you see the president of Egypt, Mohamed Morsi, M-O-R-S-I, saying that the Palestinian issue is the main issue in the... What about Darfur? What about the Sudan? What about the killing of Coptic Christians, Egyptian Christians worldwide? What about the abuse of the Christians in his own country? 10% of the population of Egypt are Christians, and they don't have the right to do what we're doing right now. Let Morsi go back to his own country, clean that rat hole up, and stop complaining about America. But you know what? We like when he complains, because it wakes up those of you who have your head in the sand. Morsi called for blasphemy laws internationally written. And he said that free speech is great, but when free speech insults the prophet, it goes too far. Figure that one out. So he calls for blasphemy laws. He identifies Palestine as the major issue that's hindering world peace. That's because the Jews, again, are hindering world peace on Yom Kippur. And he called for the capital of the Arab world to be Jerusalem. What are the chances? What are the chances of that? Well, I'll tell you what. When the Muslim Brotherhood, in an amazing development, not seen by our national security experts, not seen by our diplomats, only seen by us and the people that do this work every day, when the Muslim Brotherhood gains the presidency through a free election, what does that mean? That means the population of Egypt wants the Muslim Brotherhood to be in charge, and the Muslim Brotherhood's doctrines, which call again for a civilization jihad against the United States, which call for the establishment of the Arab Islamic Caliphate worldwide. And the Caliphate is the government seat. Let me let this thing pass for a second.
Islam will exist and continue to exist.
What is it?
Islam will exist and continue to exist, so Islam will obliterate.
Good point. The Muslim Brotherhood is the founder of Hamas. Hamas, in their charter, says that we are a wing of the Muslim Brotherhood. And on the first page of the Constitution of Hamas, it says that Israel will continue to exist until we obliterate it, until Islam obliterates it. That's what's going on in New York today, folks. We're here reporting live from Washington, D.C., across from the United States Holocaust Museum. Everyone needs to go visit that building. I've been in it many times, and as a Christian, it's just sad, beyond belief that human beings can be so evil, so dramatically evil, as to take another human being and speak nicely to them, say, yeah, we're going to work over here, come on, take a shower over here, then we're all going to have a wonderful time. How one set of human beings can be so, by design, so evil. There are no other words for it but an unadulterated evil. Well, sadly, things since 1973, the global issues since 73, since 9/11, the Arab world, since President Obama, I will point to a date certain, June 4th, 2009, Cairo, Egypt. President Obama goes on his well-known apology tour at that point, reaches a hand out to join with the Islamic world. When you have Islamic jihadis who are innately, inherently evil and hate Jews, and you reach out to them, they see that hand as a white flag of surrender. Well, since June 4th, 2009, in less than 3 years, we now have the president of Egypt. The Brotherhood articulates the essence of evil on the most holy high day for Jewish people, calling for the solution to global peace being the Jews standing in the way of Palestine and not giving Jerusalem back to the Islamic world. When you see that being called, you know this is the precedent being laid down for more aggressive activity against Jewish people. And please, on this uniquely important day for Jewish people, Yom Kippur, Americans, Christians, patriots of all stripes, please, let's commit ourselves, consolidate ourselves to stand with Israel, stand with Jewish people, because our guests, our educated guests on national security, days are going to get very, very difficult for Israel, and we need to be there. Please stand with Israel. This is Tom Trento signing off from Washington, D.C. in front of the U.S. National Holocaust Museum. Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Cool shot. Cool shot. You grab it? Yeah. Good?